"Why do you look so woebegone all of a sudden?" he asked. "Oh, 'tis only about my own self," she said, with a frail laugh of sadness, fitfully beginning to peel a lady meanwhile. "Just a sense of what might have been with me. My life looks as if it had been wasted for want of chances. When I see what you know, what you have read and seen and thought, I feel what a nothing I am. I'm like the poor Queen of Sheba who lived in the Bible. There is no more spirit in me." "Bless my soul, don't go troubling about that. Why," he said with some enthusiasm, "I should be only too glad, my dear Tess, to help you to anything in the way of history, or any line of reading you would like to take up." "It is a lady again," interrupted she, holding out the bud she had peeled. "What?" "I mean that there are always more ladies than lords when you come to peel them." "Never mind about the lords and ladies. Would you like to take up any course of study? History, for example?" "Sometimes I feel I don't want to know anything more about it than I know already." "Why not?" "Because what's the use of learning that I am one of a long row only, finding out that there is set down in some old book some one just like me, and to know that I shall only act her part, making me sad, that's all. The best is not to remember that your nature and your past doings have been just like thousands and thousands, and that your coming life and doings will be like thousands and thousands." "What? Really, then, you don't want to learn anything?" "I shouldn't mind learning why the sun do shine on the just and the unjust alike," she answered, with a slight quaver in her voice. "But that's what books will not tell me." "Tess, fie for such bitterness!" Of course he spoke with a conversational sense of duty only, for that sort of wandering had not been unknown to himself in bygone days. And as he looked at the unpractised mouth and lips, he thought that such a daughter of the soil could only have caught up the sentiment by rote. She went on peeling the lords and ladies, till Clare, regarding for a moment the wave-like curl of her lashes as they drooped with her bent gaze on her soft cheek, lingeringly went away. When he was gone she stood a while, thoughtfully peeling the last bud, and then, awakening from her reverie, flung it and all the crowd of florid nobility impatiently on the ground, in an ebullition of displeasure with herself for her niaiseries, and with a quickening warmth in her heart of hearts. How stupid he must think her! In an access of hunger for his good opinion, she bethought herself of what she had latterly endeavoured to forget, so unpleasant had been its issues: the identity of her family with that of the knightly d'Urbervilles. Barren attribute as it was, disastrous as its discovery had been in many ways to her, perhaps Mr. Clare, as a gentleman and a student of history, would respect her sufficiently to forget her childish conduct with the lords and ladies, if he knew that those Purbeck marble and alabaster people in Kingsmere Church really represented her own lineal forefathers, that she was no spurious d'Urberville, compounded of money and ambition like those at Trantridge, but true d'Urberville to the bone. But before venturing to make the revelation, dubious Tess indirectly sounded the dairyman as to its possible effect upon Mr. Clare, by asking the former if Mr. Clare had any great respect for old county families when they had lost all their money and land. "Mr. Clare," said the dairyman emphatically, "is one of the most rebellest rozzums you ever knowed. Not a bit like the rest of his family, and if there's one thing that he do hate more than another, 'tis the notion of what's called a old family. He says that it stands to reason that old families have done their spurt of work in past days, and can't have anything left in 'em now." There's the Billets and the Drenkards and the Greys and the St. Quentins and the Hardys and the Goulds, who used to own the lands for miles down this valley. You could buy 'em all up now for a song a'most. Why, our little Retty Priddle here, you know, is one of the Paradels, the old family that used to own lots of the land out by King's Hittock, now owned by the Earl of Wessex, afore even he or his was heard of. Well, Mr. Clare found this out, and spoke quite scornful to the poor girl for days. 'Ah,' he says to her, 'you'll never make a good dairymaid. All your skill was used up ages ago in Palestine, and you must lie fallow for 1,000 years to get strength for more deeds.' A boy came here t'other day asking for a job, and said his name was Matt, and when we asked him his surname, he said he'd never heard that I had any surname, and when we asked why, he said he supposed his folks hadn't been stablished long enough. 'Ah, you're the very boy I want,' said Mr. Clare, jumping up and shaking hands with him. 'I've great hopes of you,' and gave him 50 crowns. Oh no, he can't stomach old families." After hearing this caricature of Clare's opinions, poor Tess was glad that she had not said a word in a weak moment about her family, even though it was so unusually old as almost to have gone round the circle and become a new one. Besides, another dairy girl was as good as she, it seemed, in that respect. She held her tongue about the d'Urberville vault, and the Knight of the Conqueror whose name she bore. The insight afforded into Clare's character suggested to her that it was largely owing to her supposed untraditional newness that she had won interest in his eyes. Chapter 19